The vision is right there in front of you, and again, the purpose of my talk would be to share the story or the journey of this vision and the realization of the vision, backed with very rigorous inquiry and research, and which is still a work in progress. And it's, again, as it says, to discover and establish through knowledge, reason, and verification a framework of theory and practice in an effort to contribute towards a new civilization emerging in our time. Yes, a very ambitious vision, but at least I think the important thing is to embark ourselves on that journey where we are talking about a new paradigm of living for human happiness and growth. Sanjay Nagar, just to tell you briefly, means it's again, as Tariq Saab was talking about culture, language and culture, and they would talk ideas thrown about pluralism and inclusive. So it's a Sanskrit word. Nagar is abode, and Sanjan means truth seeking. So Sanjan Nagar is really a place where you're seeking truth. And in more contemporary terms, I would say that this is an inquiry, a place where you are supposed to inquire and learn and engage with understanding. The main areas of work, everything emanates from philosophy, the philosophical framework. We have musicology and we have photography. The overarching work is our philosophical work. And again, just to dispel certain notions that philosophy is not really being seen as a dogma or as an ideological dogma or tyranny of ideas, but really as a process of inquiry and research, and where you are trying to not only understand, but learn and unlearn. The focus of my talk will be on music, on musicology, and you may wonder why musicology and why not music? Because musicology is about, it's really a scholarly and scientific study of music through research. So that is where really the work in musicology comes from, the inquiry that we have been able to, at least, it's a process which has been initiated, and so it's all about change, and coming out of that thinking in musicology, we have the Sagar Veena right here, and we have some interesting things happening in the audio engineering department, and of course I will be skipping that very quickly. And then of course we have photography, and that's again a topic for another time in another place, and what we call the SIPA School of Photography, again coming from the same vision. There were two quotes, and a quote that is, all this is coming out of one man's vision, so-called, and the inspiration behind that vision, and there's so many ideas behind the work that's happened in Sanjay Nagar, and that person happens to be my father, and of course my father, being a lawyer, would never ever agree to talk for 15 or 20 minutes. So he should have been here actually talking about all this, but he says, I've done my bit. It's for people who believe in this and who are committed to take this journey forward, need to now come out and put it out and make it visible. So it's a modest attempt in doing that. Coming back to the quote, famous quote that we've been hearing as children, because my father has gone through multiple levels of engagement, from being a lawyer to politics to trade unionism and everything. So I guess at one point in his life he was inspired by this quote. Not that he still adheres to this ideology, but philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways, but the real task is to alter it. But over a period of time, once he realized that it's not about just believing in one idea, but it's about a whole process of inquiry which takes you to the next level of inquiry and raising popping questions. So he rephrased it, and philosophers have only interpreted the mind in various ways, but the real task is to restructure it. So that is where the story starts from. So the whole focus, because he had been involved with social change, and people have spoken about social change, changing societal values, culture, and I think having gone through that process himself, he came to this realization through a lot of introspection and reflection that the change has to come from within, from the human mind. So human mind really became the center stage of that process of inquiry. And as a consequence of that, currently in philosophy, we're all trying to understand what evolutionary mentology is. Sounds very intimidating and also looks intimidating. And actually, mentology does not exist. There's no word like that in the dictionary. But just to very briefly talking about it, it's an inquiry which begins for bringing change for the better, for enriching our lives. But it has to start from the human being. It's himself, and it has to start from the human mind. So it's a story about the transformation of the human mind. I don't need to read this because, but I can just the first few lines. A disciplined and serious philosophical come scientific inquiry into the human mind's relationship with nature, where mind is really being seen as part of the evolutionary process of nature. And you can't separate mind from nature. And we have evolved as species with the evolution of nature. Also that, again, it's a framework. Please don't think that he has arrived, this is a solution to a problem. So the solution is not there, it's just a journey of inquiry. And again, the purpose is for this to be a comprehensive inquiry, an all-encompassing, a holistic inquiry at both the macro and the micro dimensions of human existence. So that the change, as it says, that you can come up with some new tools of understanding and doing, which can apply first to restructure our own ideas, our feelings, our habits, our temperament, and perhaps then we would be ready to intervene socially, and we'd be ready to become agents of social change, whether it's in the field of culture, arts, society, politics, basically society. So coming back to the focus of the talk, which is on musicology, and the whole concept of musicology also has emanated from that vision. And as I said, why musicology? Because our music, when I say our, I mean the subcontinental music, India and Pakistan, especially the northern India and Pakistan belt, and as well as the South India, because there are different systems of music. We have been suffering from this huge disconnect between theory and practice. In fact, it started with a fusion of the two, the marriage of the two, the ideas and theory. Musicians in the earlier days, maybe thousands of years ago, did have an ideological framework from which they created music based on their ideas and feelings, but somewhere along the line things got disconnected, and perhaps more because of the Western influence of the scientific method that was brought in through reductionism and Western empiricism, which does not always work. So coming back to restating the purpose for creating a platform for musicology where we are able to combine theory and practice. Again, a lot of research went into that, a lot of thinking, a lot of debate, discussion, the Socratic method, and everything went into it, and it's been happening for the past 40 years. Also, just like to highlight that, again, the purpose of this was to create better music. Music is about emotional communication. So the purpose was to cultivate our sensitivities, our feelings, and put them on a higher plane and a more refined plane of operational reality, where musicians and artists and listeners as well can connect, and it should be able to fulfill the purpose of connection of our hearts and souls and minds. And that was the purpose. And one tangible outcome that has come out of this work was the first musicology department that was set up at NC in 2001 or 2, and one day we had the college principal, Mrs. Vandal, and some people come to the institute and say, we are tweaked by your work, and it tweaks our imagination, and we would want you to help us and set up the department. And we did exactly that. We put 2 years of work together. Nur Zahra, myself, and Sarah Zaman, and lots of other group of friends, Sarwat Ali and Farooq Bashir, and credit goes to all these people who believed in that idea, and we worked as a group and put the department out there. So that's one outcome, tangible outcome, and I think it's wonderful because that was the first department in Pakistan, and now we have a few more. Then coming to Sagar Veena, again I think as my friend just mentioned about that this is a unique instrument. I mean, there are many kinds of Veenas. Veenas is one of the oldest string instruments you find in South Asia. You have the Rudra Veen, the Vichitra Veen, and many others. But the name Sagar Veena it comes from Sagar means ocean. So it's an ocean of sound. And it's, as the slide says, it is a completely new addition and a unique addition, mind you, to the existing variety of string instruments for playing North Indian classical music. And now what we call it is South Asian classical music, because North Indian really, again, it's a matter of, because North Indian music covers the entire music of Pakistan. So we like to call it the South Asian classical, SACM. And a new invention in musical instruments altogether. The name is divided, as it says, in two parts, which I've just mentioned. Veena is a generic name, a term which is really used to classify the string instruments. One of the oldest string instruments, actually, in the subcontinent. Visually, it's right here in front of you, but it belongs to what it says, the two-chord family of Veena instruments. And in a sense, it is a radical departure, as I mentioned, in every aspect, every little detail, from design to construction to the whole approach from the other Veenas and from even sitar and other stringed instruments that you will find in our music. In terms of sound and acoustics, Sagar Veena has an unparalleled range of timbres. And maybe I'm not sure, 9 or 10 main playing strings, all 10 are main playing strings, covering all the octaves and various varieties of timbre and registers and pitches. So she has the freedom to just jump from one string to the other. And wow, I mean, what better could you ask? I mean, for any musician to have that freedom to just express your feelings and mood, or of course, there's a whole structure and method to it. So in that sense, another interesting thing about this Veena is, and I'm just coming at the tail end of this, the objective and the concept. The objective behind the making of the Sagar Veena is to provide the artist, as I was just saying, with a rich and extensive palette of musical sounds and timbres, evoking different kinds and degrees of pleasure through which developed human sensitivities for pleasure can be expressed. Now, this is very serious. This is a very serious, thought-provoking, I think, idea as a musician for any artist also, with any medium that you would be using, to have that kind of rich palette and extensive palette of sound. So this is something which offers precisely that. So I'll finish my talk on the Sagar Veena over there, because then I think it's for you to hear the Veena. But let me just also quickly mention that from the same vision and emanating from the same philosophical approach to music and to the whole idea of musicology and sound, there were changes in the audio engineering department as well. And the department, basically, we started with recordings way back in the 50s. My father, that was his passion, and he used to do it. But way back in the 80s, it was institutionalized, and again, somebody who's always thinking, okay, how can things get better? So the department really has undertaken a very ambitious project where the claim is that more so because of the technology and the digital music that has come out, our music, which unlike the Western music is melody based, has so many, there's a whole palette of microtones and sounds, each note like a color, like orange or red, how orange goes to red. You actually have that happening in notes also in our music. And to bring those subtle nuances out is really the real communication. And that was, again, not happening with the existing digital sound systems. So hence the need to create something better so that those subtle nuances can be captured at the source as well as when the music is reproduced, so there is a direct communication between the artist and the listener. And that's the gist of really the audio engineering. And they have worked on speakers. They've built their own speakers. They've got their amplifiers, preamps, vacuum tubes, everything is made there at the workshop. And also the fact, just like to mention that the people who are working in this workshop are not trained acoustic engineers. Again, it's linked with the whole story of transformation of the human mind. So so ordinary people who are not really trained and do not even have the degree or certification in that particular expertise are brought on and taught and trained and engaged in an organic way, not in a mechanical way. And so it's not only a transformation of an idea, but also of the people who come and work with us, and they are like our family. They could be anybody who believes in this journey. It's not, we make sure that we say this is not a job, this is a process, this is a journey where we're not sure whether it's about the success and failure of this journey, but as long as it's there. Just a few visuals here, which will just kind of help you to connect with what I'm saying. These are the the amps, the amplifiers that are made in the institute. And if you can see the word Bhulle, that's the brand, the so-called the label of all the audio engineering equipment that is made. Bhulle, and that's again, let's not get into that, it's from Bhulle Shah, of course. And those are the valves that are made here and are used. And the people behind the audio engineering, they're the speakers and the cones of the speakers, as you can see, the gentleman holding the cone there, are made right there. Can we have the visual little up? Is it possible? Or maybe okay, maybe, okay. Okay, I got it. Heavy duty machinery being installed where the components for the speakers and the amplifiers are made. These are the speakers. It's one version of the speakers, which are in the process of being upgraded. Another visual here, the capacitors, which are also made there in the lab. And as I said, that the story of Sagar Veena is also, again, a journey of change and evolution. So it's like the caterpillar, from caterpillar to the butterfly stage. This is the first Sagar Veena that was made way back in 70, Bibli? 70, yeah. Because she's actually the only one who plays Veena in Pakistan. That's the first prototype. And then as you can see that how the design has changed, and the angle, the whole visual, not only the superficial change, but inside also the design and construction of this instrument, there were many changes. And now just notice the change visually at least. So now you have this Veena where what we call the stem, the dandi, is on more or less on a horizontal plane rather than on a slant. So there it is, that's the next model. And then this is the next one yet again, because then somewhere along the line, based on, because as I said, the vision had the whole verification process was very important. So all along, the verification has been part of this whole journey of inquiry and research and innovation. So getting feedback from other musicians, other artists, just listeners, lay people, anybody. So changes kept on happening. And so it was decided that the resonating chambers, that's the uniqueness of Veena, that the resonating chamber has to be separate from the vibrating chamber. So it has to really acquire this shape. So we have almost like a suspension bridge, the frame over there on top of the gourds and the stem, which is the resonating part, bottom, and so that the pressure of the wire is really not, affecting the quality of musical sound, because that is the purpose, to create a musical sound of higher quality. And now from 1970 to here we are. So as I wrap up, I think the idea is that it's really, it's about from vision to the act of knowing and doing. And I think that's what we have learned as being associated with the Institute. And regardless of the success and failures, and mind you, we've faced many failures and many hurdles, but we're happy to be wherever we are today, and hopefully we look forward to a better future.